The first time I smoked crack, it was out of a water bottle. You know, the pipe, and you put water in.
Yeah.
it.
She talked about how she would intentionally avoid doing drugs during her career because her dad had a really bad addiction to weed, crack, and alcohol.
Some artists grow up watching addiction destroy the people they love, only to later face the same battle themselves. Nicki Minaj is one of those stories. For most of her life, she tried to stay as far away from drugs as possible. She didn't just hear about addiction. She lived through it. Her father, Robert Marriage, struggled with crack cocaine for years. As a young girl growing up in Queens, Nicki saw how addiction could tear a family apart. Because of that experience, she made a promise to herself very early. Drugs would never become part of her life. And for a long time, she kept that promise. Her career moved at lightning speed. She became the first female rapper to play 7 songs on the Billboard Hot 100 at the same time. Platinum records stacked up, world tours sold out, and her star kept rising. There seemed to be no room in that kind of life for the kind of destruction she had seen growing up. But things changed when she began suffering from severe menstrual pain. Pain strong enough to stop her completely. A doctor prescribed Percocet to help. At the time, she was living in Atlanta, early in her career. The pills worked quickly, easing the pain, so she kept taking them. What no one told her in that moment was the truth about Percocet, what it really was, and what could happen if someone kept reaching for it long after the pain was gone.
Said she was taking them for the pain in the beginning and then eventually found herself taking them when she didn't need to. And no one told her that this was a narcotic that was this addictive. But luckily, she was able to ground herself. But once she did, she says, once an addict, always an addict.
In a 2023 interview with Vogue, Nicki spoke honestly about that experience. No one told me it was a narcotic, she said. No one told me it was addictive. Luckily, she managed to stop before it went too far. She didn't enter rehab or rely on outside help. Instead, she relied on discipline and determination. But she has never pretended the struggle completely disappeared. Even today, she admits she sometimes has to think twice, sometimes even 3 times, before making certain choices. The woman who spent her entire career trying not to repeat her father's mistakes eventually found herself fighting a similar battle, just in a different way. Another story belongs to China Rogers. Born in Philadelphia in 1994, China entered the entertainment world very young. By the time she was just 14 years old, she was already modeling for brands like DKNY. On weekends, she would travel to New York City while still attending school. Eventually, she found her way into music through the hip-hop collective A$AP Mob. There she met A$AP Yams, who became her mentor and one of the first people to truly believe in her music. But in 2015, she watched him die from a drug overdose.
I knew I was off nothing unless I told them, like, I ain't out here high, eyes twitching, mouth twitching, none of that. Yeah. I really did it, and it was for a cry out for help as well, you know. And one day I started losing people to fentanyl, and it scared me.
That loss hit her deeply. By early 2016, opioid addiction had already begun taking control of her life. Years of suppressing emotions and pushing through pain had finally caught up with her. In a 2018 interview with Pitchfork, she admitted something painful about the way she used to think. Part of her believed she hadn't experienced enough hardship to deserve success as an artist. Somewhere deep down, she convinced herself that Rayall's suffering was the price of real art. Eventually, she went to rehab. She reached 90 days sober and even named a mixtape after that milestone. For a moment, it looked like she had overcome the worst of it, but life dealt another cruel blow. In 2017, her mother passed away, exactly 365 days after she completed rehab. Then on April 8, 2020, China Rogers was found unresponsive in her home in Philadelphia. She was only 25 years old. The Philadelphia Department of Public Health ruled the cause of death an accidental drug overdose. Another story comes from Katie Got Bands. She grew up in the I to B, Wells housing projects on the south side of Chicago, a place where life forces you to become tough very quickly. In 2012, at just 18 years old, she broke into Chicago's drill scene with the song I Need a Hitter while still working a fast food job. Her music carried the raw energy of the neighborhood she came from, and people connected with it instantly. But strength on the outside doesn't always mean peace on the inside. After losing both her grandmother and her aunt, she began taking Percocet to cope with grief and anxiety. At first, the pills made the pain fade, and that silence felt comforting. So she kept going back.
First time I smoked crack, it was out of a water bottle. You know, the pipe, and you put water in it.
Yeah. How old were you?
I was 19, 19 years old. But Spider D was my significant other. And across the street was a club called the Encore in Queens. And I came home just to rush home for something, I don't know what it was. It was a big rap party at the Encore. And I said to Spider D, what are you doing? He said, oh, you gotta try this, this is crack. You know, it is good. I said, okay, let me just see. And that was the worst thing I could have ever done, was hit that crack cocaine.
For a long time, she kept her addiction hidden. There were no obvious signs, no shaking, no outward struggle. No one around her even realized what was happening. Later, she admitted it was a silent cry for help that nobody heard. When she finally opened up about it, many people around her stepped back instead of stepping in to support her. Then in 2017, something changed. Fentanyl began taking the lives of people she personally knew, friends, people she had stood beside in the same rooms. And suddenly she realized something terrifying. The next name people could be mourning might be hers. So she quit cold turkey. No rehab, no program. She endured the withdrawal alone, the sweating, the itching, the sleepless nights. But she made it through, and she says quitting gave her back the focus she had lost in her music. Another story belongs to Sparky D. Born Doreen Broadnax in Brownsville, Brooklyn in 1965, she was one of the earliest women in battle rap. As a teenager in the 1980s, she went bar for bar with Roxanne Shante during the famous Roxanne Wars. These young women were selling out arenas before they were even old enough to vote. But then crack cocaine entered her life, and everything stopped. At 19 years old, she tried it for the first time. That same night, she was supposed to bring $1,000 to her mother so she could take a vacation. She never made it home. The next day, her mother died. The guilt from that moment stayed with her for 17 years. While artists like Queen Latifah and Eve were rising in hip-hop, Sparky D was trapped in addiction. Her life collapsed into crack houses in Virginia. Her turning point came in 2004 when she broke down on a street corner, begging strangers for spare change with her baby on her back. From that moment, she slowly rebuilt her life. Today, she works as a speaker and religious apostle, living proof that even 17 years of addiction doesn't have to be the end of the story.